Let's get sweaty.
Hello and welcome to the Shenmue Dojo show. Today we will be recapping and discussing Shenmue the Anime Episode 5 Equal. I am James Brown, and as per usual, joined by everyone's favourite dojo co-owner, Mr. Matthew Oliver. How's it going, man?
Yeah, not too bad. How's it going?
Not too bad myself. What have you been up to?
Work's mental. Started a new job, so that's causing me all sorts of headaches. I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West. I'd recommend it. It's really good, actually.
Is it as good as the first, would you say?
I'd say it's better than the first, actually. I keep getting distracted by side quests.
Okay. As easy to do in that game. I mean, I got the first one, completed it, didn't complete the DLC, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, to be fair. It's a game I'd probably be picking up at some point.
Yeah, it's decent. Proper decent game.
When I find a bit of time to play anyway, that is.
yeah, that's the fine thing, finding the time.
I mean, other than that, Matt, Kickstarter magazine's been funded.
Yep, looking good.
Which not long after we finished the last podcast, actually, that was funded, so that's quality. So Shenmue World Issue 2, if you didn't know what I was on about there, it's been funded on Kickstarter. There's still like 24 days left at the time of recording, so don't miss out if you want to head over there and check it out. The link will be in the show notes. Shenmue Dojo's unofficial Shenmue fan magazine. And we've also raised, and I probably should have brought Titch into this before mentioning this, but we raised £351.57 for special effect, Matt.
Yeah, we did. Hell of an effort. Absolute hell of an effort from everybody involved, actually. Absolutely crazy amount of money. We beat last year's total as well by some distance. I'm really pleased by that. And the special effect are a hell of a cause. Obviously, the three of us streamed on the Sunday. It was a bit of a bumper stream for me and you. I think we did about 4 hours in the end.
True.
And then Titch streamed again on the Thursday just gone as we were recording this, and again I think added to the total. So it's just a crazy amount that we've managed to put away this year for a really good cause.
Insane, really. And special effect, I think they're always taking donations and stuff. So even though they put this Game Blast event on, if it's a cause that you're interested in, go check it out and give them a bit of a hand, because they do some amazing work over there. And as just mentioned, along for the anime discussion ride with us, as always, is Titch Live. She's in the house. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing all right as well, thank you. How's your day been?
Oh, wonderful. Well, as nice as the weather's been outside, I've mostly been inside editing. I've got the bug for it again, so, may as well get on with it while I'm into it again. So, yeah.
What, you've been editing, like YouTube videos? Or
yeah, YouTube stuff. I'll have a Yakuza Let's Play up next week. And
Nice.
Currently working on... I posted it on Twitter before. I'd finished building the Hazuki residence in Sims 4.
Yes, The Sims. That looks really cool, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that'll be coming soon. I'm not sure when, but when I've finished editing that'll be out too.
Quality. How are you finding Yakuza series so far that you've played?
I'm loving it. Yeah, it's a lot more violent than I expected.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to sort of peaceful, relaxing games, but yeah, it's really entertaining. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying the side quests as well. All the silly little games you do. It does remind me of Shenmue in that aspect.
Yeah, I suppose when someone says, like, if you like Shenmue, go play Yakuza, and then, like, in the first 2 minutes, someone's getting the head blown off. It's a bit of a contrast, I suppose, in that sense.
Yeah, it's a total shock, but I think all the little, the exploration you can do in playing arcade games, that's very reminiscent of Shenmue, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Right, guys, so jumping straight into the show, let's start with a brief recap of last week's episode. Matt, can you take us away?
I can indeed. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can do, because we want to get into the sort of the meat and potatoes of this episode. So, episode 4, Shackles, kicks off with Ryo needing money for Hong Kong. He goes to ask Ine-san for some money, finds her doing what looks like the finances, and there's lots of minus numbers on the calculator. She sort of sighs to herself. And Ryo sort of stood there looking a bit forlorn in the doorway. Fukusan notices this and gets him into his room and gives him his piggy bank, which is very reminiscent of the scene in the games. Rio thanks him for it, takes it to his room, counts all the money out in his room, along with his own sort of building society book where he's got a load of money in his bank account, which is actually the exact same amount that's in the games, just as a side point. Realizes he's got nowhere near enough and has to work out what to do next. It cuts to the harbour. Rio gets off the bus, and our good friend Goro meets him off the bus, sort of wondering what he's doing. He calls Rio bro. Rio's like, "Why are you calling me bro? I don't like that." He's like, "I'm showing respect." They have a conversation. Rio says, "I need some money." Goro goes, "Oh, we'll go and jack somebody up some money." Rio grabs him, says, "No, I need honest work." And then it cuts to the harbour cafeteria lunchroom where they're talking to Mai. Rio's quite surprised that Goro and Mai know each other, and Goro's surprised that Rio knows Mai, so it's quite a funny little scene. She slaps him with Goro with a clipboard as well. I swear to God, she just enjoys beating Goro, as you'll see also in this.
Very violent.
Yeah, very violent. She suggests Alpha Trading Company for a job. So Rio goes to speak to Yada-san, gets a job. They call Mark over to basically show Rio the ropes. Mark's very cold at this point, not particularly interested. Sort of goes, "Here's your forklift, get on with the job." So Rio sort of having an issue with the forklift. A guy calls him over to drop a box off. He slams his foot on the accelerator, bumps it into reverse, and people are a bit upset about it. Cuts to a scene very shortly after that where Rio's finished for the day. He meets Goro, and they're sort of talking. Goro's like, "Oh, when are you going to have some money so we can party?" Rio's like, "Well, it's not really what I'm into." And then Goro goes, "Well, right, I'll show you around the harbour." So they have like a montage of some harbour places, including the best place to take a leak.
Of course.
And it cuts to a really awesome shot of the harbour with sun setting, with Goro and Rio stood at the corner. And it cuts to a scene where you've got the number 10 written in chalk on the floor, which is very important later. And Goro says, "Oh, it's like a message board to let people know where the empty warehouses are, so we can go party." It then cuts to the next day, and Rio's back at work, struggling with his forklift. And I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, he drives into some racking and sort of sits and sighs to himself. And you can see sort of Mark sat there looking at him going, "Nah, I'm not going to help him." Quite cold again, just sort of wanders off. You then get another scene as is happening with Nozomi at the Hazuki Dojo asking for Rio. Fuku-san tells her that he's at work, and she's a bit confused as to why he's working and sort of bunking off school to go work for this job. So she's a bit worried about him. Goes back to the harbour. Rio again has finished the day. Goro comes up to him and gives him a coffee, and they have a conversation about sort of Rio's motivations, what's going on. But before that, Goro sort of talks a little bit about his past, that his father bailed on him when he was a kid and sort of almost influenced the way that Goro was in terms of, beating people up for money. Rio says, "Oh, I'm looking for the Mad Angels. Do you know how I can get in touch with them?" Goro's like, what do you want to get in touch with those guys for, sort of thing. Quite worried about it. And all the way this is happening, Mark hears the whole conversation. So he's a bit like, what's this? He's a bit more intrigued in Rio at this point. It then cuts off again to, I believe, the next day. Rio is, again, forklifting, not having a good time. So he stacks some crates in a racking at an angle, which we know in the games is quite easy to do. Mark walks in and helps him out, which is a bit of a change to the way he was previously. It then sort of moves off from Rio working, and Rio goes, "Oh, why did you start teaching me properly?" And Mark's like, "Go home, you've got an early start." It cuts then to a scene with Rio and Guizhang, and Rio's like, "I thought you were done with us." And actually, it's sort of reminiscent of a scene where you have Guizhang talk to Master Chen about what Rio had been saying, should he still be tailing him as a bodyguard, and Master Chen saying, "No, we're done. It's a shame to fail you, Andazu." So Rio and Guizhang have a bit of a spar, and Guizhang teaches Rio the swallow dive, and he does it because he would be doing the same thing as Rio at this point, which is obviously trying to look for clues for his father's death. It then moves very quickly into a scene with Nozomi in the street, and they move over to the park. Rio tells her what he's doing, and she's like, "Well, if you need to do it, go and do it," sort of thing. Rio goes, "Oh, you wanted me some advice?" And she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It can wait." Goes again. Rio's back at work, working away. Not a huge amount's happening. It then cuts to the... where am I? I've lost my train of thought. I try to do this all from memory. It's clever. It's really not...
That's crazy, mate, if you're doing this from memory. Because I was going to say, it's at 10 minutes so far.
Oh, my God.
10-minute recap.
It then comes back and Mark is being beaten up by the Mad Angels, which I believe happens after the last day of work here. Ryo runs over and goes, what's going on? And Mark tells him to do a runner. They go, hang on a minute, that's Ryo Hazuki. Basically, Ryo takes them all out and asks, Mark, what's going on? And Mark says, actually, him and Ryo are very similar, that Mark's looking for his brother who's joined the Mad Angels. Obviously, Ryo's linked with them because of his father's death. Then sort of cuts over. You've got a scene a bit further back where Goro and Maya are in Zomi's flower shop, and Goro wants to buy some flowers for Awao's grave because he wants to put some, pay his respects. They then start talking about Ryo going after the Mad Angels, and Nozomi overhears this, and then very quickly gets told to go and deliver some flowers to one of the bars. She goes and does this, asks the barman about the Mad Angels. He's like, I'm not going to tell you, a girl like you shouldn't be looking for them. She goes and does it anyway, gets captured, which is sort of feeds into what's going to happen next. Mad Angels turn up at Ryo's house to say, we've got Nozomi, get your ass down to Warehouse 17 or we're going to make her cry. He boots the guy off the bike and then steals it to end up at the Warehouse 17. Meets Terry for the first time. He says, right, basically take out Guizhang and we'll give the girl back. And the last couple of scenes are Guizhang and Ryo fighting. They take each other out using the swallow dive with Terry stood over them going, ha ha ha, Yakusuka is mine now. And then that's the end of the show.
Wow. And just before that, he scribbled out 10 and put 17.
He did. I missed a very important point there, actually. Just before that fight kicks off, and I mentioned this point earlier on, he turns the chalked off 10 to a 17 to alert somebody, we presumed Goro, that basically something's going down. So that's quite an important plot point, which I conveniently missed out.
I was going to say, though, man, that's why I was on about the other week. You've got such a good memory. To be doing that all off the top of your head, that's bonkers.
Brain hurts now.
That's like your longest recap ever, I think.
Probably is, in fairness. Try to keep
you might brief. As well just do the rest of the episode like that, and then we can go 10-minute episodes moving forward. Done and dusted.
No.
So, yeah, very good, man. So that moves us nicely into the latest episode, which we've just finished watching. And I'm going to start with the synopsis here. So again, this is called Episode 5, Equal. So Ryo is forced to fight Guizhang Chen from the Chen family to save Nozomi, who the Mad Angels have taken as a hostage. In the hopes that Goro can find Ryo's secret message, he fights Guizhang Chen. The fight ends with Ryo and Guizhang both getting wounded and defeated when Goro has all but given up hope. So that's kind of a synopsis of the episode you just said, in a way, just because of what happens in this episode is kind of like a continuation from that point.
Yeah, it's very much a lead on, isn't it, from what we've had in episode 4.
Yeah, which we'll get into that in a moment. But just overall thoughts on this particular episode, Titch. What did you like? What did you dislike, if anything?
It was a roller coaster ride, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very fast paced and it covered a lot. And there was a lot of things I liked about it, but there was a few things that I was sort of sad about that were sort of missed. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that we might see in the future as flashbacks, but all in all, I was just like, oh, I need to lie down after this. It just sort of, it took me everywhere. So, it was all very exciting and then it was also very sad. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I think roller coaster is a good word to use, actually, because, it's 1 second it's fast paced and then it winds down a little bit and then we've got some heartfelt scenes and then you got action again. So, yeah, a bit tops and turvy episode. What were your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Titch on this one. I thought overall it was an excellent episode. We got some really nice scenes in there, which we're obviously going to talk about in some detail in a minute. I was disappointed that there's certain elements that we were talking about last week in terms of the boat that I don't think we may get anymore. That was a bit gutting. I'm going to make a formal complaint that they didn't play Wish. Completely and utterly disgraceful. Cancel the show right now. Come on. No, but overall, I enjoyed it. I thought the fighting was very well done. I thought it was very well animated. I thought it started off quite slowly, and then probably a third of the way in, it went really quick. Bang, bang, plot point. But it gave some nice characterization to sort of the side characters a little bit and how they helped Ryo and how it all came together really nicely. I thought they did it very well. I would have liked maybe a little bit more with Ryo leaving in terms of certainly the Hazuki Dojo bit. The bit with Nozomi, which we'll come to, was That punched me in the feels a little bit. Actually, I feel really sorry for her. But overall,
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed it. What about yourself, James?
Same. Agree with both of you guys. Just like you say, there's a few things they kind of brushed over, perhaps skipped, which didn't affect the narrative. But as Shenmue fans going from the games, it would have been nice to have seen. But again, we'll get into that when we start breaking down these scenes in a moment. Right then, guys, let's get stuck into the nitty gritty. So we've got some fabulous show notes again from Titch. So this time around, we didn't get any opening scene. It just jumps straight into the opening titles, which is a little bit unusual, but you'll see why, because they seem very pressed for time in this episode. So any fluff, I guess, they didn't need to include at the start there, so they just jumped straight in. So the opening scene, we've got the Ryo and Guizhang fight. So it's kind of continuing from where the last episode left off, although in the last scene of the last episode, Ryo and Guizhang were both unconscious. So it seems to have gone back in time slightly, and they're now continuing to fight. First thing we see is Ryo lunging towards Guizhang with a punch, which Guizhang deflects, and then they continue fighting. The Mad Angels watching in the background in awe of their skill and start thinking about betting on the outcome, actually. So nice little interaction there. We've got people betting on Chen and someone betting on Hazuki. Terry ignores their chatter and watches the fight intently. Whilst still fighting, Ryo thinks to himself, please, I hope that you get the message. That's the chalk writing that he did, where he changed the 0 to a 7. He's hoping that someone will spot that. And yeah, he did that where Goro recommended Ryo take a leak, if you remember that from the last episode.
He did.
Which then cuts to the leak spot, actually. And Goro's seen shivering, stumbling over to his favourite toilet spot in the harbour. Whilst doing his business, he noticed that the number on the floor is 17, which, as he's reading that, he's like, oh, yeah, great, there's a party somewhere. But then as soon as he sees the 7, he realises that is the warehouse of the Mad Angels hideout, and instead starts to panic. And we get quite a lot of funny scenes from Goro where he's panicked, sort of. He's a crazy character anyway in general, but very much emphasised in the anime.
Goro, we'll find as we go on. He's more essential here than I think even in the games. You sort of talk to him a bit in the games. He sort of struts around. It's about all he does. I think here they've obviously made an active decision to, I think, close some of those arcs a little bit. Like with Goro, obviously seeing the warehouse 17 bit on the floor. And if you think back to the previous episode where they were in the flower shop and he saw Nozomi, so it was planting those seeds quite early on in sort of, I say early on, you know what I'm saying. It was planting those seeds for Goro to get involved in some way, shape, or form. It's just then obviously how involved he got and what his actions were, which obviously we're going to talk about in a minute. But I thought it was quite nicely done. He turned it into sort of your typical anime comedic character. I mean, pissing on his own foot, for Christ's sake. It did make me laugh, but it's very anime comedy type thing, which I have no issue with it. And actually sort of fits Goro in his character. He's quite comedic, isn't he, in his interactions and the way he walks around and talks. So yeah, I quite liked him and the way they did it.
Yeah, they have to have a comedy character, I suppose. Just thinking out loud here, who do you think is the comedic character in Shenmue 2?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Fang Mei could sort of fit that role potentially. But I'm just getting it off the top of my head. Titch, have you got any
Ren,
ideas?
I suppose. Ren could be a bit.
Oh, gonna throw it out there and say Yuan's bird.
Yuan's bird.
Yeah.
The minor bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would cause a bit of a few comedy moments, I'd have thought.
Isn't there a bit where Ren gets it to say stupid do new?
Yes.
At some point. Yeah.
That's a good call. Good call. Let me cut to actually that the Mad Angels hideout, Warehouse 17, and 2 of Terry's henchmen are still inside watching over Nozomi, albeit looking sleepier as the night goes on. This is where Goro notices a back door on the warehouse that's been left ajar, so he approaches it and peers inside, and he notices and recognises Nozomi. So that kind of ties into that plot we got from the previous episode where him and Maya are in the flower shop, and there was a bit of context there to who Nozomi was. So the henchmen start discussing why Terry thinks Ryo has any chance of taking down Guizhang, and they've got little confidence in Ryo being able to finish Guizhang, but capable enough to do damage to rip him a new one. So they're kind of hoping that both going to hurt themselves enough, and then they're going to step in and finish them both off, kind of thing.
Yeah, which is pretty much the game's story arc, isn't it?
Yeah, and then Nozomi and Goro overhear this, and that kind of worries them. And they assume that Ryo is clearly in trouble.
So we start to see Goro frantically running and shouting towards Mai in the harbour cafeteria, and he's flailing his arms around. And she's still working at the lunch stand quite late into the evening, which is interesting.
What time is this? And like 1 a.m. or something?
Yeah, I wonder if she has worked shifts or something for like the late night workers, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose there is late night staff. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, weird one. So Goro throws his hands onto the stand that she's working at and exclaims that Bro is in trouble, which is Ryo. I might ask what's wrong, but then Goro starts trying to talk, and he's talking so fast he's just rambling on with a load of gibberish, much like myself. And this is rather interesting. So she slaps him across the face to calm down. So that becomes a common occurrence in this episode. And eventually Goro is finally able to speak clearly, and he tells Mai that it's the girl from the flower shop and that she's been nabbed by the Mad Angels. And he starts flapping around again and says that Ryo's in major trouble and the Mad Angels have got him good. And then he asks Mai if he can use the payphone that's behind us to call the police, but she tells Goro that no one's going to take a knucklehead like him seriously.
True.
So he backs down, and then they discuss what they can do next. And then Mai has a sudden brainwave and asks Goro to follow her. And then they run out the cafeteria.
Interesting. I guess no one's going to take over a job, though. She's just leaving the harbour cafeteria. I suppose she's not going to get many patrons, though, I don't think, at that time. So
no, I don't think that there was anyone in there other than, what's the lady called that works
yeah,
there?
the other lady. We noticed her in the background, actually.
Yeah, it was good spot on stream, that was, because you caught that before I did.
It's an Easter egg video, man. I don't know what her name is. I could probably look it up on Sukapass, but that's going to take 5 minutes. So
No worries.
Don't worry about it.
So then we cut to outside Alpha Trading office, where Mai and Goro have just made it there, and they're walking towards a couple of forklifts. And Goro asks why Mai has led them both to there, and then she actually gets on one of the forklifts herself. And she says that they should use them to smash up the Mad Angels. And then Goro starts backing away in disbelief, probably in shock that she's being quite ballsy about it and sort of aggressive. But as he's backing up, he actually stumbles into Mark, who asks him what they are doing in his really serious Mark tone. And he actually recognises Goro as Ryo's friend.
I've just got a name. So it was Tommy Maruyama.
Ah.
If anyone wants to look her up, just in case you don't know what I'm on about, context-wise.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah, I can see her face now.
That's the harbour dinner lady girl. Yeah, our woman.
So then we cut back to the Guizhong and Ryo fight, and Guizhong is now running towards Ryo with a powerful blow, and Ryo manages to deflect it. And then Ryo's now looking a bit more tired and sweaty, so they're clearly sort of wearing themselves out and getting really exhausted. And he thinks to himself, I guess that Goro didn't get my message, because I assume he thought that Goro would just, rock up and be his loud, brash self. But yeah, I don't think he knows at this point that Goro is actually working behind the scenes for him. So then Guizhong taunts Ryo, asking if he still hasn't had enough of fighting with him. And then Guizhong lunges at Ryo with a series of swift attacks, and he actually lands a punch into Ryo's stomach, which sets Ryo right back. And at this point, it prompts Terry to call out to Ryo, asking him to kick Guizhong's ass already. So, they're taking too long, and Terry's getting really impatient. And then he also reminds Ryo of what is at stake. So, obviously, that's Nozomi that's tied up in the warehouse. So, this sort of enrages Ryo, and he gets like a second wind because he's really angry. And he starts running towards Guizhong with loads of punches. And, of course, Guizhong sort of matching Ryo in his ability at this point. He's blocking all these attacks, but only just. So, yeah, he's clearly being tested by Ryo's strength now. And then they move backwards at this point, and they run at each other with a swallow dive kick, which is the move that Guizhong had just taught Ryo. So they both do it to each other at the same time, and then because they're both doing it at the same time, they sort of cancel each other out, and then they both fall down to the floor. And then this sort of is the ending of the previous episode, so we're now sort of back in time and back up to speed at this point, because we then see Terry laughing and saying, Yokosuka is his for the taking.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because from what we know a little bit later in the episode, they are actually going quite at it, each other, proper punches and lunges and stuff, and must be hurting both Rio and Guizhang, some of the stuff that they're pulling off here.
Yeah, I'm really surprised he had any energy for what's going to come up for later in the episode.
Good point.
So we cut to a scene which isn't in the games, outside the Alpha Trading office. Goro and Mai are talking with Mark about Rio being in danger. And Mai asks Mark if he can borrow the forklift and sort of jumps on one to say, well, I'm going to drive it then. And Mark's like, well, do you know how to drive this thing? And she's like, no. He's like, right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go and do it. Which, fair play to Mark. I think that's, obviously, they've established Rio and Mark's friendship over that work episode in Shackles in episode 4, where obviously Mark was really cold, and actually, as things have gone on, he understands sort of what Rio's plight, if you like. He's been a bit more willing to help.
I quite like this coming together of these characters, by the way. Like, they've made them as a nice group of friends, really, haven't they? Mai, Goro, and Mark now.
They have, and actually thinking about it, Awow's last words, keep friends and those you love close to you. It resonates, actually. Now, you mentioning that, she sort of triggered that thought in my head. It's very...
They're all working together, aren't they?
Yeah, they're working together to help Rio, and he hasn't asked for their help, really. I mean, he's hoped Goro will find him, but he hasn't outwardly asked for the help. They're just doing it out of friendship, and I think that sort of resonates with Awow's words quite well, alongside closing some of these character arcs of Mark, Goro, and Mai, which obviously we'll talk about in a minute. But I thought this is very well done overall. But it cuts now to the Mad Angels hangout, and there's sort of the sound of this banging metal, and you see the door sort of getting dented, and it's Mark in the forklift ramming the shutters to the warehouse with the forklift, and he breaks through. And if you remember from one of the trailers we got early on, you see this forklift powering through the warehouse, and it's this scene. He hurtles towards the henchmen, pins them back towards like some sort of container. The forklift sort of penetrates this wooden container. He backs up the forklift and leaves them sort of trapped, and you see them wetting themselves on the floor, which I thought was quite funny. Gorum,
nice little detail.
Yeah, again, I mean, to be fair, you've been almost Grand Theft Auto'd with a forklift, so you're not going to be particularly chilled at this point.
I suppose if you've been guarding and there's no time for a toilet break.
Yeah, it's game over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Goro and Mai run towards Nozomi to free her and reassure everything's okay. And Mark says to the three of them, get on the forklift to make their escape, and you leave the henchmen sort of pinned up at the container. So outside the harbour now, Goro, Mai, Nozomi, and Mark are speeding through the harbour on the forklift, making their escape. Goro and Mai seem to be enjoying the ride, especially Goro. He seems to be quite enjoying himself. Very Goro type character there. Nozomi seems and looks very worried, very pensive, very worried about what's happening. Mark says that he's heading straight to the Hentress Harbour, which is their escape route, and whilst doing so, they notice Rio and Guizhang on the floor across from the water. Mark stops the forklift. Goro gets off and runs towards the edge of the water, calling out to Rio. He falls to his knees, and the others leave the forklift to sort of run towards him. Goro sort of wishes he could help sooner, clearly thinking that Rio has been utterly defeated. But this sort of feeds into the aftermath of the Rio and Guizhang fight, where Terry, having seen Rio and Guizhang take each other out, is now instructing his henchmen to finish them off, and they're lying on the floor. One of the henchmen obliges and gets a baseball bat ready to take out Rio. It's slightly different from the games, where Terry has, I think it's like some cement on a bar type thing in the game.
It's a big bar thing, metal bar.
Yeah. Kind of... which he tries to take them out with, whereas here it's one of the guys with a baseball bat. Rio jumps out of the way in the nick of time, and both him and Guizhang get up and sort of run backwards. Rio's friends realise that he's okay, and he's screaming with glee from across the water. Goro starts crying, rightly thinking that they've been defeated. And then I think this is slap number 3 at this point.
I'm not counting, but it's a good chunk of slaps.
Cracks him across the back of the head for even having the thought that Rio was dead. I feel sorry for him. He's getting slapped around quite a lot here.
He's going to have a lot of bruises tomorrow.
He is. Rio and Guizhang sort of stand side by side, complimenting each other's ability, and sort of give each other a knowing look. And Terry's henchmen are taken aback by their renewed strength, almost like they planned it.
Yeah.
It's slightly different to the games here, actually. it shows flashback to Ryo and Guizhang secretly talking to each other during the fight, and Ryo tells Guizhang it's a trap. The Mad Angel has taken Nozomi hostage, and he needs to defeat Guizhang to get her back. So Guizhang says to him, "We should put on a show." And then it reveals they did the swallow dive to each other, but never actually hit each other. And there's this really well put together scene where it's all, the kick comes down sort of past sort of both their noses with like a little bit of space in between, a little bit of daylight, and they obviously fake going down. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was more impactful in the game where Guizhang kicks Ryo in the face to take Ryo down, and in Ryo's sort of desperation, he throws like a flying kick up. And they take each other out
under the chin.
The game feels more impactful here in that regard. I get it; it's very clever what they've done with the swallow dive and sort of faking them out. But a minor criticism is I think the game did it better here. I think it felt more impactful. So when they got up, it was almost like a shock that they got up. That they just smashed each other in the face and nearly taken each other out.
Yeah, true.
So they're having to dig deep. But yeah, I liked it. But like I said, I just think the game did this a bit better, personally.
Yeah, they did kind of do that in the game. He says, pretend to lose.
Yeah.
Terry will take me to Landy kind of thing. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, it was a lot more impactful in that, actually hurting each other in the game, leaving them both out. Well, not cold, but just on the floor. And it just showed that Guizhang, even though under the circumstances he knew he was meant to pretend for a reason kind of thing, he still had that kind of attitude, that kind of like he wasn't going to let up regardless kind of thing in the game. Whereas in this, he kind of agrees with him straight away, and they plot this. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think Guizhang in the game, it's more almost like his pride almost gets in the way.
Yeah.
Whereas I think here he's more willing to listen. But yeah, as I say, I think just a different take on it. I mean, Titch, what did you think of it?
Yeah, there's a clear difference between Guizhang and the Guizhang in the anime that we've seen and the Guizhang in the game. He is a lot more sort of. He comes across as like he feels he's beneath Ryo in the anime, whereas in the game he sort of comes across that he's more above and like better than Ryo. Well, I think, yeah, I agree that in the game it was sort of more impactful that they do actually sort of touch each other. But I suppose because Terry and the Mad Angels are quite a way away, it's I was in the belief that they actually did kick each other when they did go down. So I suppose, that Terry and the Mad Angels being such a distance, they probably wouldn't have even noticed that they didn't touch one another. So I suppose they got away with it in that sense.
Yeah, I think it was cleverly done, and because they were so far away. So from a story perspective, it makes absolute sense. Again, as I say, it's not a major criticism. I think it's probably something that probably divided the chat actually in the stream and how they sort of executed it. I thought they executed it very well, and the fight itself is excellent. The Guizhang Ryo fight is very well put together, very well choreographed. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't quite carry the same stakes for the 70-man battle, having sort of them almost fake a fight essentially to actually having a fight in the games, and they sort of have to pick themselves up. But we'll move on.
Yeah, we'll move on. And going forward, anyway, at least with the next part, the animation, everything, and the fighting scenes are quality now.
Good.
So we've got the start of the 70-man battle. So if you've played the video games, you know what we're talking about here. So Ryo taunts the Mad Angels by shouting that he will never roll over for scum like them. Terry claims that he knew they would pull stupid shit like this and clicks his fingers, which is kind of like the "let me invite you to hell" thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So Ryo and Guizhang are poised, ready to fight, as Group's henchmen start making their way out of the shadows towards them. They are clearly outnumbered on a major scale. I didn't count, but we'll assume that there's 70 of them in the anime as well.
Yeah, at least I reckon there's loads of them.
So Terry stands in front of the men, Ryo and Guizhang in the foreground, ready to take them on. Guizhang claims that their little warm-up is over and that this is the real fight. So at this point, Ryo's noticed his friends from across the water. He calls out to Mark and Goro to take Nozomi home. He doesn't want them to get in any danger at all. Mark's a little bit hesitant and claims that Ryo and Guizhang cannot fight alone, but Ryo doesn't back down. Goro, he seems quite happy to accept rallies and gets everyone trying to get out of the commotion. Nozomi stops a little bit because she's obviously concerned for Ryo, but Goro says that they will just be getting in the way, and Mark then agrees to take them all towards the entrance of the harbour. However, Nozomi still looks hesitant. Terry's noticed them now and claims there's no escape for anyone, so Goro hops on the forklift and they all... Is it on the forklift?
Yeah.
They all,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
they
on
all,
the forklift.
yeah, they all drive off quite speedily on the forklift, don't they? For, even faster getaway. So, like I say, this is the 70-man battle now. So, a group of men running towards Ryo and Guizhang, some of them armed with baseball bats. It's an easy start for the pair as they take several men down with one hit on each, much like in the game. Then Ryo checks in on Guizhang to see if he's still holding up, and Guizhang jokingly asks, who does he think he's talking to? Ryo's friends are still speeding away on the forklift, with Goro shouting encouraging words for Ryo, and Nozomi looking back, looking concerned. Terry notices that Ryo and Guizhang have taken out the first load of men and sends in the next lot. Really, he should just send them all in at the same time, shouldn't he, really? Holding some back for round 2, which we're getting straight into now. So the next group of men are armed more heavily, this time with metal rods and pipes. So it's like easy difficulty, now medium difficulty. They're running towards Ryo and Guizhang, who start making a run for it themselves. And whilst running, Guizhang tells Ryo that he knew that getting involved with him was asking for trouble. Ryo says Guizhang can gripe about that later. Guizhang then bites back by saying if Ryo lasts that long, and Ryo tells him not to worry about himself. So we kind of got that same sort of cockiness from Guizhang, like from the games. He's obviously, his persona is, he's working with Ryo, he's helping Ryo, but he's still got to kind of have the last word and sound like he's, like I say, a bit cocky.
Yeah, and it's a play, isn't it, on the games where he turns around and he goes, "Is trouble your middle name?" And Ryo says, "Save your complaints for later." It's different line, but I actually think they're equally well delivered and equally as impactful here.
Yeah.
In the way it's sort of done as the precursor to the next part of the fight.
Yeah, just little quips back and forth. So Ryo and Guizhang run into a group of men coming around the corner of the warehouse who are also heavily armed. The pair manage to take them out in a few sweeping blows and continue running. They round another corner and are faced with another group of men also wielding metal rods. Ryo approaches the first one, knocks the rod out of his hand and kicks him down to the floor. And then another man runs at Ryo ready to hit him with a baseball bat. Ryo kicks him in the stomach after the man misses his swings. So again, we're getting lots of good quality fighting scenes here. There's one last guy who runs at Ryo, is quickly taken down again, and then Ryo manages to knock out 5 men at once with one blow. Meanwhile, Guizhang is fighting his own group of men and also manages to take out a group with a sweeping kick. The third and final part, the 70-man battle thing here that we got going on, so the last group of men start carrying as they cannot believe the strength of Ryo and Guizhang. One shouts to the others with words of encouragement, "Don't wimp out." Ryo and Guizhang exchange similar words of encouragement to each other, poised side by side, ready to fight the last group. The group start running towards them with metal rods in hand, and then this is where we get that synchronized swallow dive from both Ryo and Guizhang, and it's like, I don't know, it's like a tornado in front of them. It just blows all of them to the ground, flying them. Just a really cool scene anyway. And then this ends with Terry standing above on a metal rooftop, looking down at his fallen henchman. Ooh, yeah. Anyone got anything to say about that?
I mean, it's a bloody... the fight is bloody well put together, the whole thing. I think the stakes are raised a little bit. I think with all these weapons floating around in the game, as people have seen on stream when we streamed the other Friday, it's a lot of hand-to-hand combat. Whereas at least it was here, there's weapons involved. I don't know, it feels a bit more threatening in that regard. The animation here is spot on. I think the fighting animation as the episodes have worn on has got better, and it's sort of hit a nice point here now that when you get further on into the series with the shed loads of fighting that we're going to get in Shenmue 2, I think it's like a perfect platform for them to build on in terms of how these are choreographed and put together. The 70-man battle was excellent. Thoroughly enjoyed every second of the fight. The quips that Ryo and Guizhang were having were spot on in terms of how they do them in the games as well. In terms of respect for the source material, I've got no complaints whatsoever. I'm greedy. I would like more fighting, but you've got a 23-minute episode. You've got to cram it in. So that's just me being greedy more than me having a critical point.
Titch is someone that's a avid speedrunner of the 70-man battle. How do you think this compared to the game?
Oh, amazing! Yeah. I quite like how they sort of panned it out because it felt like the game to me, because it was like increasing the stakes, and in the anime it was getting like each group was getting more tough and had like worse weapons, as it were. So it did feel like the game in that way, that it was getting progressively harder, even though at the end the last group of guys were like, oh god, we've got no chance because, you know, they've taken out all the others, so, you know, what hope have we got? But yeah, I quite like how they played that out. I thought it was really good.
1-hit kills all around.
Yeah. So Rio's friends have just made it to the entrance of the harbour on the forklift, and Goromai and Nozomi step off and run towards the exit. But halfway into running away, Nozomi stops and she's looking pensive, looking at the floor. Amai asks her what's wrong, and Nozomi says that they can't just leave Ryo and Guizong behind, like they have done. So Goro's there, being his usual self. He tries to reassure Nozomi that going back would mean even more trouble, especially for all of them. And then here we go. Mai slaps Goro across the face again for saying this.
I think we need a counter on the screen, Matt. What we're up to? Just 4 or 5? Or...
I think 4 or 5. Yeah, I can't believe it. Like, she just keep beating him. Like, I feel sorry for the man. I really do.
I think he's getting more punches than Ryo and Guizong at this point. She's terrible. Yeah. So yeah, then Mark actually makes the final decision on behalf of the group and says, come on, we're all going to go back. And Nozomi is, really delighted about this because, she's clearly been really worried about Ryo this whole time.
Yeah, what did they actually do then? Mark makes the final decision that they're going to go back. So they made it to one side of the harbour and then they turn around and say, let's go back?
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it to the entrance, didn't they? And obviously Mai beats up Goro repeatedly. And Nozomi sort of sat there, worried about it. And I think Mark just sort of makes the call there and then. He doesn't say a lot. He just makes that call, and they go back, which obviously pleases Nozomi.
Okay,
but
interesting.
There wasn't a huge conversation over it, other than that Goro was getting a bit worried about them running back into trouble. And he does have a point. In fairness to him.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're at the aftermath of the 70-man battle, and Ryo and Guizong are stood side by side in front of all the fallen henchmen. And Terry jumps down from the rooftop and tells them that it's not over yet. So Ryo steps back and he says he's got no reason to keep fighting now that Nozomi is safe, which makes total sense because, he don't want to get involved in, turf wars and gang violence and all that stuff. So he leaves it to Guizong and Terry to settle their own score. But Ryo actually stays around to sort of watch, and I assume he probably thinks, I'll at least stay in case Guizong needs some backup. So Terry lunges at Guizong, but Guizong retaliates and slams Terry back with a mighty blow. And then Terry realises he's actually too weak for Guizong without using a weapon, so he finds a baseball bat. He tries to hit Guizong over the head, but luckily Guizong catches the bat just in time before he gets hit. And it's at this point that Ryo tries to step in and help Guizong, but Guizong actually tells Ryo, keep back, keep away, because Guizong's got plenty of fight left in him. So Terry keeps swinging his bat around, but he keeps missing Guizong, luckily. And then whilst Terry's off guard, Guizong swoops a kick into Terry's face, and he falls back into some crates, visibly beaten, and at this point he's covered in blood.
In the game, when you first learn the swallow dive, it's... I think you were saying last week, Matt, it's like the swallow dive or whatever that they were using last week was like the advanced animation.
Yeah.
Whereas this one seemed like the pre-animation, if that makes sense, where it's like a swoopy leg kick thing. Like almost like a around the world whoosh kind of thing that they do.
I see what you're saying.
Just thought I'd make that point.
So Ryo and Guizong start to leave, and the fight is officially over at that point. But as they walk away, Terry actually gets their attention and asks if they're after Lan Di. And with his bloody mouth, he tells the pair that if they think beating the Mad Angels is some sort of victory, then they don't know who they're up against when it comes to Lan Di. And whilst saying this, it actually shows Lan Di at the front of his boat on his way to Hong Kong. And then Terry continues to say that when Ryo gets to Hong Kong, they will be waiting. It doesn't say who will be waiting, but it does show a red sky with the shadows of a group of men and presumably women. And the one at the front looks like who we know as Do Neo. And Terry guarantees Ryo that he won't make it back alive from Hong Kong.
Love that
shot. Man, that shot. So good. And I think we were saying this on stream. Obviously, you've got Do Neo at the front. I think to the right, we thought it was Yuan.
Yeah.
And Nikolai messaged me just as we finished stream. I think during stream, I picked it up afterwards. If you look to the left of that image, and I'll put it on the screen for everybody, I think that's Bayu next to
Master
Dolmio
Bayu?
on the left. Yeah, I
Oh,
think it's Master Bayu.
Okay.
I'd have to have a look at it again, but there's enough of it there to suggest it could be. And I thought that if that's the case, you've got those sort of three at the front. That's really cool.
I'm looking
The
forward
image,
to
though,
that. So is there like some sort of feathery
spot on.
thing sticking out what looks like it?
Yeah, it looks like it. It really does. I'll see if I can pull it up actually while we're talking about it very quickly.
I wonder if someone will do one of those things where they like resize in Photoshop and like put the actual characters in the positions.
If you look at it, you don't see the feathery thing so much, but you know he has like something on just on the top of his face, like his mask thing.
Okay.
You can just see the top of it
That
from
would
what
make
I can
sense.
see. So I think it's quite believable that it could be.
Yeah.
But that shot is like
that's going to be like one of
amazing.
the iconic shots, I think, from the series, perhaps.
And it just shows again the artwork they've put together for this is brilliant. Some of the shots, like the Guilin shots that we've seen, the shots of the Hazuki Dojo,
Sakuroka.
All of that together. The artwork here is amazing. It's perfect. It really is. I think it captures the atmospheres really, really well. So we've had obviously the 70-man battle, and we're now at the harbour at dawn. Ryo and Guizhang stood together by the water's edge, very reminiscent of the video game. And Guizhang asks what's next for Ryo, and is he going to pursue things further? In the games, Ryo's a bit more aggressive. He says, "Well, I can't just give up." Whereas here, he says that he can't give up now, and he's going to find a way to go to Hong Kong. Less aggressive, but it's the same sort of concept here. Guizhang says it will ask Master Chen for help, and then actually changes his sort of tone here and says, "No, I will speak with my father. I'll convince him to help you." He asks Ryo to phone them again. Ryo thanks Guizhang for his help, and he sort of smiles and leaves.
Okay, interesting. I missed that then.
Yeah, which it comes to later in the anime, but in the games, obviously, Ryo says thank you, and Guizhang turns around and says, "Oh no, that's my line," sort of thing. But we'll see that later, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then Goro shouts at Ryo from behind. He's still with Mai, Mark, and Zomi, and Ryo is obviously relieved there quite well. It then cuts to what looks to be like a very early morning scene here.
Gets brighter.
Yeah, much brighter. And Goro is obviously relieved that Ryo's made it out alive. Ryo thanks Goro for noticing his chalk message. Thanks Mai and Mark for their help as well. Sort of filling in on that. Keep friends you have close to you. That's there again. Ryo tells Nozomi that he's glad she's all right, and she apologizes and thanks him truly. So there's an emphasis on that a little bit. And she's very, I don't know, she's very withdrawn here, considering her character for the rest of the game. Ryo says that it's his fault, that he dragged his friends into his problems, and Nozomi forgives him. Ryo and the others now looking at Nozomi. Goro tries to say something, but Mai punches him to the side and tells him to shut up. Jesus. She smiles at Nozomi and we're sort of prompting her to speak, and it passes between Ryo and Nozomi looking at each other, and it cuts to this hell of a shot of the sun sort of rising above the sea line, which is really cool. And then, you happy for me to carry on with this next bit?
Yeah, keep going, matey.
Sits together. Ryo's riding his illegitimately got motorcycle. The Mad Angel is clearly not getting that back. Ryo needs to sell it for some Hong Kong money, it seems. When Nozomi sort of sat behind him, holding him tight, and they pass through the tunnels as they head towards Tabuita. And these tunnels are actually real tunnels. I know Switch did a shot of one of them in comparison to the real life shot, and it is a real place.
Amazing.
Which is quality. Nozomi's looking very sort of sad. She sort of buries her head in his back, and it shows a flashback to her joyfully running towards Ryo and Guizhang when they're talking about Hong Kong, which was earlier that morning. And her face changes, she gets closer, and she overhears that Ryo wants to go to Hong Kong to obviously pursue this, because that's what this is like, the first part of his single-mindedness around his father. I think he's had a lot around being with his friends, being with his own, offering advice, etc. But I think this is the first step towards, I will be pursuing this. This is my sole focus. It's a bit of a change, I think.
Yeah, and I also think the way they structured that shot, I know he doesn't know that she's behind him, but he's literally got his back to her, and it's there's nothing that he cares about other than this direction.
It's symbolic, isn't it, that he's going away, he's off, and she stops, and Goro, Mai, and Mark are behind her. And it cuts back to them on the motorcycle, and Nozomi thanks Ryo again. He says, "Oh, you wanted some advice from me? What was it going to be?" She says it's okay now. She's already made up her mind. She sort of buries her face in his back and they carry on ahead. And it cuts to the sky and the music finishes. And obviously we know, or we're assuming, and it's pretty obvious, I think, that her hearing that conversation is has made her mind up. She's going to go to Canada, and Rio doesn't know at this point. He has no idea, and she's obviously sort of made that off the back of Rio going, I'm going to go to Hong Kong. I do feel sorry for her a little bit here, actually, but it's very well shot, and the emotional stakes there were put together really nicely. Different to the video game, yeah, absolutely, because Nozomi's not backwards and coming forward, that she's going to Canada. Whereas I think for the relationship the two of them have here, it fits really, really well. But Rio is changing, I think, his character in that single-mindedness, that drive to go to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I think that's then, or it's made that decision for Nozomi. But it was very well shot, very well done, and very symbolic. And it conveyed that emotion very well, I thought.
Yeah, especially now, like, Rio is actually plotting to leave, and so
yeah,
I agree. Like you're saying, the relationship between them feels like I care more about Nozomi in the anime than I did in the game, and I know she's like a character that cries in the game, and she's got a lot of emotion that she expresses. But I think because Rio literally never gives anything back at all in the games, it's just this one-sided thing. So you don't really feel like, you feel sorry for her, but like in the anime, they have had a bit of a relationship, and Rio's given back when Nozomi's given to him. So it kind of does feel sad that she's not even told him that she's planning to move to Canada or whatever. She knows it's not going to change anything, or perhaps she doesn't want to get involved and, I don't know, confuse the matter for him if he would change his tune. I don't know, knowing that she's leaving, but he's leaving anyway, ain't he? So
yeah, and I think she knows he won't, and I don't think it would change his mind at this point. I think he's set. That's it. He's off.
Is this when she was crying? By the way, there was a tear, or was that a little bit later?
No, this is that happens in a couple of scenes.
Okay. Have you got anything to add to that topic of conversation, by the way, Titch? Like Nozomi and stuff?
No. Yeah, it was. You covered it really well. So yeah, I haven't got anything to add.
Okay. So some days later at the harbour, we see Mark entering the Alpha Trading office to see, who then sees Rio thanking Yada-san for allowing to work at the harbour. So Rio's kind of handing his notice in after a couple of days. But he's got an envelope in his hand. We assume his wages for 2 days, probably about 80 quid, is it? And Rio starts to leave and passes Mark. So Rio then tells Mark it's been great working with him. And Mark encourages Rio to keep walking down his own path, and that he believes Rio will be fine. So some nice caring words from Mark there. Outside the office, Mai and Goro are with Rio talking about marriage, believe it or not. So we're getting that scene from the game where Goro and Mai decide they're going to get married, which is a bit out of the blue in the game, and perhaps, I don't know, I was going to say even more so in the anime, but actually the context from what Goro actually says in a moment, it kind of adds a little bit to the scene, actually, for me. So, whilst blushing, Mai and Goro reveal that they have been together for a while. Rio's shocked about the news and that it has come up very quickly. But it turns out that the situation with saving Nozomi made Goro realise that Mai is the only girl for him, so he doesn't mind being slapped around silly. And like I say, the context there, that after seeing Mai in that sort of position, a life-threatening sort of situation and standing up for herself and everything, he's head over heels. Literally after being slapped. So Rio's still in disbelief, but when he asks Mai if she's good with marrying Goro, she confirms this by saying that there's never been a dull moment when Goro is around. Rio mocks Goro by saying this is Goro we're talking about, and that just makes Goro laugh. Okay, so now outside the Hazuki residence, we've got it kind of cuts a big chunk out here for me. This was probably a little bit of a negative on the series as a whole so far for me, just how it just suddenly skipped here. But I suppose that, what would they have fit in between this? Maybe like saying goodbye to Tom, or stuff. We've not really had anything with Tom, have we, apart from that first episode? So
yeah,
maybe
I don't know what they were to do with it.
It just felt like a big time skip, didn't it? But actually, I don't really know what they would have fit within that time anyway, off the top of my head. But anyway, so Rio stood outside the gates of the residence with Ine-san and Fukusan. He's wearing his iconic green backpack, and Ine-san's actually crying into a tissue. Ryo tells them to cut it out, and they'll be coming back once he finds out the truth. So again, we're not getting revenge, we're getting the truth. Unless that's just Ryo's way of like plastering over the situation. But he hasn't really said the word revenge at all so far in the anime. He's still not. Ine-san covers Ryo's hands with hers, and then Fukusan puts his hand on top, which is nice. Kind of a nice way to end the scene. And Fukusan's got faith that Ryo will find proof of Owao's innocence. But Ine-san asks Ryo to stay safe. And then we see Ryo walking with his backpack, looking at his hand that's just been lovingly held by Ine-san and Fukusan. He's then distracted by Nozomi, who stood looking into Sakuragaoka Park. She turns to Ryo with a smile and asks what's up. She asks Ryo if he's going to Hong Kong today, which he then confirms. She says that she knows how he is with these things and won't be saying a word. In other words, she can't do anything to stop him at this point. So yeah, she's made that point clear. However, she offers him a good luck amulet, that trusty red amulet that we know from the end of the game. Actually, it happens in a flashback in the game, but I think it works better actually that he does it on the way. I always did find that a little bit strange in the game, how, especially the first playthrough, I was like, what's going on here? Like, because we never really have like a flashback of a scene that's just happened. It's always been like, Ryo and his father as kids, or well, Ryo in that case. We never had a scene that's like supposedly like 10 minutes ago as a flashback. So this kind of works a bit better in my opinion. She's made a wish on the amulet to ensure Ryo's safety and for the gods to protect him. He takes it with gratitude, and Nozomi says that they will see each other someday again. And Ryo responds with a yeah, and continues on his way, leaving Nozomi behind and showing the ground by her feet where her tears are falling. So this is where we're getting that heartfelt moment where she's actually crying, which is a shame.
I thought this was brilliantly done, actually. I really thought they put a lot of thought into this, that she sat there, she doesn't say anything, she's crying. And it's, again, I think it's her character more. She doesn't show as much emotion as Nozomi in the games, but it fits her really well. And I felt for her a little bit, that she knows she's letting him go, and she has to. She can't stop him. And I think she's she's resigned herself to that fact. And that was almost like the parting tears, if you like.
Yeah, it's over, kind of thing.
Yeah, very symbolic.
Yeah, for me, that part of the episode felt like someone had just punched me in the stomach. I was like, oh my God, that's so sad.
Bit of a gut wrencher.
Yeah, the gut wrencher, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do wonder, because the last we saw of Nozomi before that was on, when she was behind Ryo on the motorbike. I wonder if between that moment and this moment where she's giving him the amulet, we might see a flashback later on in the anime. Maybe she told Ryo in that time that she was going to Canada. I'm not sure, but that's just me being hopeful that we do get a bit more of Ryo and Nozomi later on.
It could very well happen. They could choose to like show glimpses of Japan and that sort of stuff in flashbacks again in the future. When we ultimately get to the Hong Kong section of the anime, we're going to have like 8 full episodes of it, so they might choose to like throw in a bit of Japan from time to time, so we could get a bit more context behind certain things that perhaps they seem like they've cut, but maybe they haven't. They could go back over them again later. I don't know.
I think they could, and it's like the photo as well. We haven't got with Nozomi and Ryo. Obviously, he's in the end credits, so it hasn't been like completely cut. But I do wonder again. They might do a quick flashback, especially when Ryo eventually meets Shenhua, whether they might like do a flashback to that photo being taken or something. I think they could do it. I just don't know if they're going to have time. That's the issue I have, is are they going to have the time to sort of quickly throw in a flashback? I'd like them to, but equally I could also see them not doing it because of just how much they've got to cram into Shenmue 2. You've got 8 episodes. It's going to go fast quickly.
So we're back at the harbour, and Ryo's looking out to sea at the ferry, which he's about to take to Hong Kong. And Guizhong sarcastically calls out to Ryo, saying that his foolishness really knows no bounds and that he's got quite sick of it. So I think does that come from the game?
It does, yeah. It's exactly the same line that he says in the games, which I love that. It's said very differently, but the same sort of message gets across.
Yeah, it's great. So then Ryo runs towards Master Chen and Guizhong, who are stood side by side, and Ryo thanks them both for arranging his trip to Hong Kong. So it's clear at this point that Guizhong managed to persuade Master Chen to let Ryo go and help him actually get there.
Yeah, even though Ryo just assumed he's got his bag packed and he's already
Yeah,
heading
he's going
there.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if he has to swim.
Of course. Master Chen actually helped Ryo get to Hong Kong on the basis that he will not let Ryo go on his own. So Guizhong steps forward and he's clutching a little travel bag, which alludes to the point that Master Chen's getting Guizhong to go as well. Even though that Ryo may find him a burden, he will be twice the ally. So that's something that Master Chen says to Ryo. And the reason for this is that they still have a vested interest in keeping tabs on the activities of the Chiyu men. And then Master Chen asks Ryo how his search will proceed when he actually arrives in Hong Kong. So what's he actually going to do when he gets there? And Ryo says that he'll be looking for Yuanda Zhu, which comes as a result of the letter that came after his father passed. And Ryo actually asks Chen where he might find him to give him a bit of a steer for when he gets there. But Chen says he doesn't actually know where Zhu currently is, but he does offer Ryo an introduction to someone trustworthy who might be able to help him. And he hands Ryo a letter. So I think as players of the game, we're quite well aware of who that person is at this point. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing her.
Did he say in the game, they kind of led you thinking that it was a man, didn't they? Until you got to Mamo Temple and you find out Shiying's a woman. But he didn't really say he or him, or I do feel like they say him in the game, don't they? Or is it Ryo? Ryo asks where he can find him, and he doesn't correct him or something like that.
That's about right, I think. It's obviously it doesn't happen like that here, but I do wonder if they'll play on that because obviously,
well, maybe it does. Because I'm reading that there. It says asks Chen where he might find him.
Because Shenmue has a lot of strong female characters, like Joy. I'm thinking of particularly in Shenmue 2, and Zhuing, obviously as we know.
Fang Mei. Yeah.
And Fang. So I do wonder if they'll play on that because Ryo does judge that martial arts master would be a man, and as we all know, that clearly isn't the case.
Interesting to see which way they take that when we get there.
And then it's at this point that a load of metal tall pipes fall down from behind and they come crashing down towards Ryo and the Chens. And whilst the three of them manage to move out the way, Guizhong's legs are still sort of sticking out a bit too much, and then one of them actually falls onto his right leg and he calls out in pain like "ah," which concerns Ryo. And we then find out that it was Chai who pushed them down. So he jumps down from the top of some containers and he lands in front of Ryo and he's ready to attack. He tells Ryo that he won't be going to Hong Kong as he's about to lose a fight to him. And then he demands to take the mirror from Ryo. So he's still after the mirror.
This was a bit
impress Landy.
Bit bad on Guizhong, wasn't it? Where he's actually showing the blood dripping from his legs, wasn't it?
It looked quite nasty.
Yeah, so Chai moves very swiftly at Ryo and he's jumping around. So he moves quite quickly. I assume that's part of his fighting style. So Ryo manages to dodge his attacks and he actually lands a kick on Chai's neck. And this sets Chai back and he's like, oh, well, Ryo's now very strong compared to the last fight that they had, which I think in the anime was actually in the Hazuki family dojo.
Yeah.
At the start of the anime. Yeah, so he actually asks, why has Ryo gotten stronger? And Ryo says that he's not going to lose to anyone, especially not until he finds out the truth about his father and his death. So then Chai makes one last run at Ryo, and then Ryo fights back with a swift swallow dive kick, which, we've seen quite a lot of it in this anime.
It's like the one it's the one move, actually, that's taking everyone out at the moment.
Yeah, that's it.
Might as well just keep using it on everyone. Try it on Landy.
Exactly. And it's so strong, it actually sends Chai flying off into the water.
Yeah, because in the game, it's the counter elbow assault, right? That does Chai.
Yes, the elbow assault. He sort of, as he jumps at him, he throws the elbow and he goes flying into the sea. Whereas obviously here they've changed it up.
They've given more merit to the swallow dive kick, which I suppose is okay. Works contextually for the story as well and stuff.
Yeah, it's no issue with it. I think it works well. The kick looked quite brutal. It catches him square in the face, which is quite funny.
Yeah. So we did get Chai in the dojo, didn't we? And then we did get Chai when Ryo presses the button, but he didn't fight him in
No, he didn't fight him there.
Yeah, so it is only the second time he's fought him.
Yeah.
Which then kind of means that we're not going to get the boat chapter, right?
I think we'd be surprised to get the boat chapter. I mean, I could see maybe that Rio's sort of walking through Hong Kong. He meets the mother and the daughter. They may do like a quick 4 or 5 scene flashback.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get the boat chapter, which I know I said on stream I was quite disappointed about. And I mean, the 3 things I wanted to see in terms of new content, new old content, if you like, the karate tournament, how Rio got his scar, which I know was different to what we obviously know from the original sort of talking to Yuzuki in the script, and the boat chapter. Now I've got 2 out of 3, so I can't complain too much. I think they could have done it. They've obviously chosen not to. I don't have an issue with it per se. I'm just slightly disappointed that they haven't gone down that road. But we'll see. We'll see in episode.
Yeah, see what
6.
happens, man. You can't until they've literally wrote it off. We can't.
Yeah, exactly. You can't write it off just yet. But it's just a personal thing. It's a shame. But picking up from there, we go to their last goodbyes. Rio sort of checks in on Guizhang, and obviously his blood's pissing blood everywhere. It's quite nasty. And Master Chen tells him he can't travel with his leg like that. Guizhang disagrees and says that Rio can't face the human without him. Rio agrees with Master Chen that tells Guizhang to stay. And Guizhang claims that Rio thinks he's useless with this injury, but the reality is that Rio thinks it's better for Guizhang to stay with his father. He then thanks the Chens in Chinese, which I thought was very interesting here, and says it will see them again. Rio's Chinese is okay, so I do wonder if you might get more of these sorts of scenes in Hong Kong. I know we've had scenes in China where Shenhua is speaking Japanese, for example. I do wonder if we might get some scenes where Rio uses his Chinese, because it obviously seems like his dad taught him some, which is cool.
This kind of confirms that, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and they smile at Rio as they have a good trip, and Rio and Guizhang sort of shake their hands, which is great. They do that in the game. Rio sort of gets on the boat, watching the ferry depart. Master Chen tells Guizhang that he was hoping for some time on his own would be a good chance for him to grow. And Guizhang believes that staying was the right choice, as he's still room to grow at home with his father. He said, Master Chen
Not that he had a choice,
thought, well, yeah, your leg's like absolutely ruined, but you know, Guizhang's clearly his quads of steel don't quite hold up in the anime to quite what they did in the game, getting rid of one massive steel girder. But you know, he's obviously skipped leg day.
Yeah.
Here. Master Chen tells Guizhang that he thought Guizhang hated being stuck by his father's side all the time, but Guizhang disagrees and says no matter what, he will always be his father's son, and Master Chen laughs. Now, he obviously doesn't twig the significance of that, but obviously this is what Rio said to Guizhang in episode 3, I believe, towards the end. He said, I will always be my father's son. And it resonated with Guizhang. So to sort of say that to close their arc off, and the fact that Guizhang saved his father from the steel pipes, etc., and it closes that off really, really well.
Yeah,
that actually they do have a father-son relationship, and Rio sort of played a role in maybe repairing that, or at least opening that up a bit. Whereas I think it was a bit closed before. They then watch the boat sail off into the distance. It cuts to a flashback of earlier in the morning where Guizhang said, "Thank you for the help." In his head, and Guizhang says, "Wrong again, I should be thanking you," meaning Rio. And then we have the final scene. Rio's on the boat looking at his lucky charm, the letter from Yuandazu, and he goes out to sea, and he says, "Just you wait, Landy." And that is it. Japan, Shenmue 1 has been completed in 5 episodes. Hell of a roller coaster.
And the journey's just beginning. Essentially.
That winding tale shall now begin, as they say in the prophecy that we've heard 6 times.
But not for a while, actually. Not for the last 2.
Not for a while. And actually, I think they knocked that off just right. Actually, I think it got to a point where it's like we've heard it a lot now, and they've stopped it.
Yeah.
And I do wonder what we're going to get actually with Shenhua and Bailu Village. That he's now in China. So there's a lot to go on here. But I think they've done Shenmue 1 justice, done it very well, very fast paced in some bits. Some bits they've taken out, which I'd have liked. But I think the additions that they made outweigh what we didn't get. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Loved it. Really well done. Shenmue 2, they've got a lot to cram in here. So I do think we're going to get a lot of fast-paced stuff and a lot of bits and pieces that some people may like coming in, may like being taken out, and vice versa. But I think as long as they nail the story elements like they have with Shenmue 1, we're in for a treat for Shenmue 2.
Definitely, man. And you Titch, like the last 5 episodes, covering the whole of the Japan chapter, as it were. How do you think they've done?
Yeah, I think they've done a great job. I agree with Matt that there's some bits that I'm sort of like, oh, I wish that would have been in, or they sort of, developed Nozomi a bit more, or went sort of pre-Shenmue, a bit more sort of backstory at that point. But yeah, I think they did a good job overall, especially getting the balance between the slow pace of the game and then the fast pace of the anime. I think they've really married it well together. I'm really impressed with it so far. And I'm keen to see what they're going to do with Shenmue 2 because, like you said, it's like a mammoth compared to Shenmue 1. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
And we've seen very little, but we will get into what we have seen after a quick music break now. So this is Parting Tears from Shenmue 1's OST. Welcome back. That was Parting Tears from Shenmue 1's OST, and we're going to jump quickly into what we've seen from episode 6 so far. So we're already moving on quite briskly into the series now, episode 6. Not quite the halfway point, but getting there. And this episode is called Dignified, right, Matt, I think?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Can you describe what we've seen in the little 20-30 second trailer, what we had?
I can. So Rio is now in Hong Kong and he's looking for the Antin apartments, which is, we're quite a way into sort of the first bits of Shenmue 2 at this point. And he comes across our good friend Wong, who is running away from Sam, Larry, and Coolsey. And basically Wong says they're gonna beat me up. And Sam, Larry, and Coolsey make a threat to Rio, says we can hand over the boy, we're gonna beat you up. And I can't remember the exact line Rio says, but I think he says something along the lines of different location, different country, same trash, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Gets into his fighting stance, and then it sort of finishes the scene basically. So it's, obviously at this point, Rio has not bought 600 lighters, and he is
He's literally going to lose his money. Definitely.
Going to lose all his money. Enjoy, Rio. Enjoy.
Yeah. Other than that, losing his bag and stuff, what else do you reckon we'll see Titch in this first, well, not the first episode, but you know what I mean, the first episode of Hong Kong?
Well, I definitely hope we see Joy accidentally nearly knock Rio over with a motorbike. That'd be a good start as well for him, won't it?
Yeah. I think we'll get
nice
Joy.
Introduction.
Yeah, I think we'll get Joy. I think she will play, I think, quite a big role here. I just have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of her. They like the sort of the female leads in anime anyway, so I don't think she'll replace Nozomi as such, but I think she'll be around with a different attitude to Nozomi, and I think it could be quite good. But I'm looking forward to it. Shenmue 2 is my favourite game of the series, so I'm pumped, really pumped to see what they're going to do with it.
And if they don't do the boat stuff, which I don't think they will, I don't think they'll have that little thing at the start with the lady and the child saying thanks for saving my child on the boat. 'Cause I think there's even less context in the anime sort of thing. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I don't know if I'm looking forward to this though. So we're jumping into Jim's Poetry Corner next. And I must be pretty comfortable around you guys to do what I'm about to do. Okay, so the song, guys, is called Your Imagination.
Oh my god, you've done it! Oh, you what?
Oh
With
my
the
god!
no! What have you done?
Oh, I'm just so glad that this is a thing because I thought it was just me that heard this song in Shenmue 3.
No, it's not. Like, I think everybody who's played Shenmue 3 hears that Bailu Village music and hears this. Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, here we go.
So I think you may already have it. Well, yeah, I don't know. I've gone for something quite unique with this one, hopefully, in terms of character-wise, because obviously we had Shenfall last week. So, okay, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. Make a wish. Count to 3. Come with me, cross the seas, to discover Guilin's Bailu village. Take a look on your PC. Give us your monetization. Double click from your list. Loading into the world of my creation. What you'll see will defy exploration. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Any herb you want, just grab it. Want to make a quick buck? Sell them at Tauget. There is no place I know that compares with Guilin's Bailu village. Living there with Shenmue 3, if you truly wish to be. If you want to learn Baji Quan, Yin and Yang and the Four Voodoo, anytime you want, just do it. Practice the art of Kung Fu, there's nothing to it. Verdant Bridge, Shenmue trees, things that were only part of your imagination, announced there at E3. You truly wished it be.
I'm impressed you did that, keeping a straight face, and now I have Bailu Village stuck in my damned head.
Voice of an angel, James.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll have to listen to that back, see how cringe that was. But like Matt and Titch, you both got that. That's kind of like a running joke for people that have heard that.
Yeah.
Well, the Bailu Village kind of theme tune, as it were.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll play a little chunk of that just so you get the context, like pure imagination. But based on the lyrics, guys, who do you reckon wrote that poem or that song?
Oh, that's a toughie, you know.
The trick one.
Oh, it was hard, though.
There was a couple of clues in there, though.
Was it Yu Suzuki, was it?
Yeah, well done.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Titch got it, yeah.
Oh, well played, Titch. I was not going there at all. Well played.
Because it was from his perspective, like...
yeah, I can see your point.
Give us your monetization. And then there was a lyric I used that was like loading into the world of my creation. So it's like he
very well put together. Good guess, Titch, as well.
Thank you.
Nowhere near.
I'm glad you both enjoyed that, guys. So we're going to let Titch go little bit of a long one, actually. That kind of, I think you can see why they did cram quite a lot of stuff into that particular episode. There's a lot there we had to digest and take into account there. So, yeah, thanks again for coming along, Titch. Thanks again for all your notes. And I guess we'll just see you again next week.
Yeah, brilliant. Hopefully my notes are shorter next week because they're getting longer and longer each week.
They are getting longer, yeah.
Because the episodes
5,
are so
6,
good.
7, 8 pages this week.
Yeah, need to tone it down. Brill. Thank you both for having us again. You take care.
No
worries.
Bye.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the news section now. Again, not very much. It's been a weekly show. We're not going to get too much news, but I will mention again, Shenmue World, thanks for everyone that's backed. If you haven't backed yet, or you're waiting or whatever, yeah, I mean, thanks so much. By the time you hear this, it's going to be probably within the last 20 days, which is still a fair chunk. I'll probably mention it again on a future show, but check the link in the description if that interests you at all. Shenmue Fan Magazine from the Shenmue Dojo. It's loads of cool extras, Blu-ray, poster, art cards, etc. Just an all-around fun project there. But on the subject of books and magazines and stuff, I will mention a couple that we've sort of got a little bit of involvement in, myself and Matt. So Lost in Cult have just finished a Kickstarter for Lock On, Volume 3, which is a really cool, sort of like a coffee table type book, depending on whether you get the soft cover or the hard cover. Really thick, loads of gaming content inside there. And particularly in this Volume 3, there's an article from myself called The Journey, which is basically the journey of Shenmue from the perspective of Yu Suzuki. Really cool article. There's also a front cover depicting Shenmue on the front of this hardcover. It's going to be supposed to be like 50% Dreamcast, so if any of that interests you, check out Lost in Cult. I'll probably chuck a link in the description below. You can still pick this up even though the Kickstarter's ended. You can pre-order the book here. I think it's only going to be like a month or so max until this actually arrives at people's doors. And the second Sega-related magazine I will mention is called Sega Powered, which is a really cool new Sega magazine from veteran Sega magazine editors and writers. You've got Dean, who used to work on DC UK back in the day, and there's a few other guys on the staff there that worked on older Sega magazines, probably around the time of the Mega Drive and stuff. So, like I say, some really veteran editors and stuff, and the quality actually shows. I've got the first 2 issues so far, and yeah, definitely really great if you're a big Sega fan. Issue 3 promises to be a very Shenmue-heavy issue. They're going to do quite a few features on Shenmue, and myself and Matt are actually involved in creating some of the content that they're looking to put inside this magazine. So me and Matt have been working away on a few different things that we won't mention yet just because they haven't revealed, but definitely check out that magazine later on in the month. We'll probably tweet about it or something, and I'll have a link in the show notes again. This is going to be issue 3, which is touted for release at the end of March. Matt's side of things, you've got a couple of interviews in the works, Matt, if you can speak of goings on with them.
I'm not going to reveal names just yet. I'm recording one. By the time you listen to this, I'll be recording one tomorrow. A gamer's journey is all I'm going to say on that one. You can work out the rest for yourselves. And I've got 2 booked coming up with 2 of the anime voice actors. I'm just sort of finalising the dates for one of them, and the other's booked for following Sunday in March. So keep an eye out for those. Other than that, Shenmue was trending on Twitter when the anime was airing. It's been trending, I think, for 4 out of 5 weeks it's been running, which is insane.
That is insane.
I think if you're judging popularity and success on something like that, I think we could well be in for a second season. Everything crossed, of course, but it was a long way to go at this point. And just don't forget to go and rate it on My Anime List, IMDb, etc., and get the push out there that this anime is good. It's doing really well. There's a lot going for it here, and let's see if we can attract new people into the franchise through it, and hopefully the games, and ultimately a Shenmue 4.
Definitely. And if you want any additional Shenmue content, obviously you've got your other podcasts, your Shenmue AM2s, Megavisions, Sega Bits, and then you've also got your blog posts over at the dojo. We do 2 a week, just kind of summarising the previous episode and going in the nitty gritty of the lore and stuff surrounding that, comparing it to the games. Then you've got blogs from Shenmusings and Fanta Riverstone, of course, who blog post on, at least on the weekly. Phantom Riverstone possibly a little bit more frequent than that. I think he's just touched on some more locations that bear resemblance to the anime.
He has. Yeah, really good stuff
Some
in
quality
there.
stuff there. So check out all of that, guys. But we're going to wrap up the show with a bunch of forum posts from the dojo again. And this is going to be regarding episode 4. We always like to do the previous episode, as we are recording literally hours after watching it for ourselves for the first time. So this is going to be for the previous episode. And I'm going to start with Kintor, who says he had to pause the episode to take the screenshot. So Matt will probably show the screenshot. It's the one overlooking Sakuraoka. Really nice.
Oh, yeah.
Simply breathtaking in its own right. What I love, though, is the context as Nozomi looks out towards the harbour thinking about Ryo. That's when it hit me. I don't think we've ever seen an establishing shot like this connection every area in Shenmue 1 before. That would simply be beyond the Dreamcast's capabilities. Yet here we have Yokosuka as a fully realised world in one image. Yes, I see what he means. You can see the harbour and everything from that one still, can't you? In the distance.
Yeah, which obviously in the Dreamcast it has to individually load the maps for every area and every shop, etc. So it's see it all together. Yeah, I see what Kintor's getting at there. Moving on, we've got Gladius number 9. This episode has the best action sequences by far. It also had a lot of breathing room, allowing for a lot more character moments. Love the Grand Theft Shenmue moment with the bike. Yeah, definitely. The amount of depth and screen time certain characters are getting is definitely a huge positive. I think they kind of rushed that ending with Guizhang. I actually assumed they would have left it for the next episode so it would be longer, but again, the fight scenes were good enough to have me forgive that.
So that is before realising that the next episode actually does expand on that?
Yeah, so I see at that point I can get it, but obviously episode 5 expands upon that. I really respect how the team is handling this adaptation. They are cutting what isn't totally necessary and only keeping what advances the plot, but also adding to it in so many significant ways. I've never felt so intrigued by the Chens and Mad Angels till I saw this anime. It's nice having a Nozomi that takes centre spotlight at times and an even more relatable Goro. Heck, even Ryo's presence has been improved. I'm very excited to see how they adapt to Shenmue 2's Ren and Joy.
Good stuff. Next, we've got Tombos, who says it's easily the best episode so far and a 9.5 out of 10 for me. A lot of the changes so far have been very hit and miss, but all of the big ones around this episode landed just perfectly. Giving Goro a bit of a backstory to explain why he's helping Ryo was a nice touch, as too was having Nozomi land herself in trouble rather than the Mad Angels seek her out, which I don't think would have worked given how quickly they breezed through Ryo's time working at the harbour. Yeah, I know what he means there, like he didn't do enough to antagonise them.
Yeah.
I also like how Mark gradually warmed to Ryo as he got to know more about him, even if it was a little weird to see him acting like a total douche. Okay, can see that point as well. I can see some fans being annoyed with how much the story was cut out, but I can't say I'm all that bothered. It's now looking like the next episode will be the last one to take place in Japan, which leaves 8 episodes for Shenmue 2. Given how much more there is to get through in the sequel, I expect they'll need every single one of them. Yeah, basically.
Definitely.
And he called that, didn't he? Ending in Japan.
Yeah, I think we all called that one. In fairness, with the episode we've obviously just talked about. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot to get through in Shenmue 2. And the last one we've got here is from Landy Sama. He says, many thoughts spinning through my head while watching this. I think this is the strongest episode yet. The additional scenes that we saw that weren't in the game do wonders to flesh things out, particularly the parts with Goro, Mai, and Nozomi, in a way that I felt could really pull in a viewer who hasn't played the games. I'd agree with that. I think that's fair. As for the pacing, it's definitely condensed quite a lot into the last half of the episode, but our point of reference is a 15-hour game that stretched out to cover one chapter of a 10-plus chapter story. Valid. Obviously, we were the target audience for a game like Shenmue 1. It is perfect in our eyes, but I've always believed that condensing it would have retained more players. Yeah, and that's one of the major criticisms of Shenmue 1 is its pacing, and I can see where they're going with that. The team behind this anime could totally make a compelling 12-episode series that focused just on Shenmue 1, and as fans we would gobble that up. But the reality is they are covering both games this season, so the pacing makes sense. I'm hoping they're able to take more time with Shenmue 3 and beyond and tell the remaining story in a way that doesn't feel rushed. 2 more seasons seems ideal, but I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself. This episode even gave me the urge to pop in Shenmue 1 tomorrow for my first playthrough since its PS4 release. I have not even considered it since Shenmue 3, to be honest. Some of the cinematography aspect from the games I felt the anime was lacking was present in episode 4. Sweeping shots of Yokosuka, the music, especially the main theme remix at the end while Ryo and Guizhang were fighting. I haven't rewatched any episode yet, but I think I might now. I'm stoked on where this adaptation is heading.
Spot on. And yeah, I mean, a few people have mentioned about Shenmue the movie, like comprising the first game in like an hour and a half, and the anime's actually done more than that. If you add up, the 20 minutes or so in 5 episodes, that's like 2 hours, I guess.
Yeah, around 2 hours.
So they've added a little bit more. It still felt really fast paced, hasn't it? Really, considering that as well, but. I think 8 episodes, again, they're going to have to squeeze a lot within those episodes, but I feel like it's doable, actually, with 8. I think it's doable.
Yeah, I think they're going to cut a lot of fluff, and I've said this at the top of the stream, and I said this at the top of this podcast as well. I think there are going to be elements of people who will like what they cut out, like what they put in, don't like what they cut, don't like what they put in. But I think it's going to be a common theme here. They will cut out what isn't essential to the story. So the things that we may like as in the games that would be nice, I think may go. But they're going to have to hone in really, really hard on the story here. There are certain things that we want in Shenmue 2, like Zhuing's arc is really important. The Wu's really important, just as 2 examples. But I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to play this in Shenmue 2. I think we are in for an absolute treat based on the first 5 episodes. And if they live up to those first 5 episodes, we are going to get one hell of a season of anime that I really think deserves a second season. It really does. And just give me the merch, give me the Blu-rays, give me the soundtrack, and I'm ready.
Definitely, man. And I don't think from what they have done has like compromised any of the narrative. I mean, the stuff that they've skipped over is like kind of like stuff that they didn't need to do anyway, or isn't important, in the narrative moving forward. So hopefully that's kind of stays true in Shenmue 2, and they don't skip anything of a major plot point, which I can't see them doing, to be honest. The way that they're taking this anime, they're taking it very seriously, and I'm really pleased that after those 5 episodes of Japan, I'm actually really pleased with what we got.
Yeah, same, absolutely.
So that's going to wrap up the show nicely now, guys. So if you do want to leave any of your own comments there that we're going to read out this time next week, do so over on the Shenmue Dojo forums. Reply to the episode 5 topic for Equal, and we'll skim through some of them and try and pick out some of the notable ones there that we want to include in next week's show. But we're going to end with another piece of music. This is A Mesmerizing Knife from Shenmue 3's OST. Enjoy that, guys, and we'll see you again this time next week.
See you later.
Look at the time.